The Titanic, lost and found. The grandest ship. When it was built, many people thought it was the grandest ship to ever sail the seas. Others claimed it was the biggest, and some people even said it was unsinkable. But on Sunday, April 14, 1912, just before midnight, disaster struck. Within hours, the Titanic, the most magnificent ship of the time, had sunk to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Do you know? The full name of the Titanic was RMS Titanic. RMS stands for Royal Mail Ship. The Titanic was carrying 3,500 bags of mail on the night it sank. The Titanic was built in Northern Ireland. It took people and cargo across the Atlantic Ocean. Airplanes were still new contraptions. In 1912, so the only way to travel from Europe to the United States was by boat. Passengers began boarding the Titanic on Wednesday, April 10, in Southampton, England. They were thrilled to be on what was considered the grandest ship in the world. It was the ship's first trip, also called its maiden voyage, and it would take 1 week to reach New York. Wealthy people traveled in style aboard the Titanic. They had fancy rooms for dining and elegant rooms for sleeping. First-class rooms perched at the top of the ship and offered the best views and fresh air. The Titanic even had 4 elevators and a lavish staircase. People who did not have a lot of money traveled in less spacious quarters at the bottom of the ship. This area was called the steerage, and the rooms were cramped and crowded. Steerage passengers were not allowed to go to the upper levels of the ship. Do you know? A person's class was one status in
Society
based on how much money he or she made. Upper class people had a lot of money, whereas lower class people had a little. In 1912, different classes were separated. How much did it cost to travel with the Titanic? First class, $4,350. Second class, $65 per person. Third class, $35 per person. At sea, after leaving Southampton, the Titanic stopped in France, then in Ireland, picking up a few more passengers. Finally, on Thursday, April 11, the Titanic set sail for the cold open sea of the North Atlantic Ocean. The Titanic must have been a marvel to behold as it glided across the ocean. It was the biggest ship of its time. It was 269 meters, 883 feet long, about the length of 55 cars parked bumper to bumper. It was also as tall as a 10-story building, 32 meters, 114 feet. Its 4 towering smokestacks stood 19 meters, 62 feet tall, which is more than 15 fourth graders staying on top of each other's shoulders. So can I get in a few minutes to check my videos? Okay, then Marcos, my nation, sir, there. Oh, sorry. 3 days after leaving Southampton, the Titanic was well into the North Atlantic Ocean. North Atlantic. I think they forgot the ocean. This area is known for icebergs, and the ship's workers were responsible for watching out these dangerous chunks of ice, floating ice. They don't need to do the floating because most ice floats. That Sunday evening, the sea was calm. No white-capped waves crashed against rugged icebergs, which would have made the ice easier to spot. Also, the night was almost dark and cloudless. No moon shone over the still open waters. Then, at 11:40 p.m., the crew and other passengers felt a jarring thud against the side of the ship. The Titanic had struck an iceberg. No one panicked, though, because they believed the Titanic was unsinkable. One person knew differently. A chilly discovery. Icebergs are actually bigger below the surface of the water than above it. The Titanic did not hit the part of the iceberg that you can see. Instead, it hit the larger part of the iceberg below the surface. Hold on. Against the chilly discovery, that's not the Titanic. That's clearly, literally, it's the Constellation ship. It's not the Titanic. You can see the Titanic has 4 smokestacks, but it has 2 smokestacks. We are sinking. That person was Thomas Andrews, who had helped design the Titanic. He soon realized, by the way the ship was behaving, that it was in grave danger. As calmly as possible, the unexpected passengers were awakened and told to put on their life jackets. Women and children in first class were ushered into lifeboats, which were then lowered into the ocean far below. People waited patiently for their turns, still not understanding the danger that faced them. Yet all too soon, it became evident to everyone on board the Titanic was in dire trouble. Supposedly, the unsinkable ship was sinking, and it did not have enough lifeboats for everyone. Recently, the ship's band stayed on the deck and played music to keep everyone calm. Some people prayed quietly and waited for the worst. Others frantically grabbed objects that might help them float on the water. Still, others desperately clung to the ship's deck as it lifted in the air. In the ship's radio room, the radio operator sent an urgent message. Have struck an iceberg. We are badly damaged. The message read. A second message included a distress signal SOS. The closest ship responded to the closest ship that responded, the Carpathia, would reach the Titanic in several hours. But that was not enough. That was not soon enough. 2.5 hours after the Titanic struck an iceberg, it sank and disappeared, lost beneath the icy surface of the North Atlantic Ocean. Do you know? Although it has never been proved beyond doubt, suspicions remain to this day that another ship was nearby. The Californian might have been as close as 5 miles, but was definitely no more than 19 miles away from the Titanic. Its crew, however, claimed not to have seen Titanic's distress flares. In addition, the Californian's radio had been turned off, so it never received Titanic's SOS. Rescued. In the early mornings of Monday, April 15, the Carpathia arrived to rescue the Titanic, exhausted from the grief-stricken survivors. About 700 people had survived in a few lifeboats, but 1,500 had perished. Most had not drowned, however, in floating in the life vests. Most had died from extremely cold temperatures of the North Atlantic. And the world was stunned by the loss of the Titanic. How could such a magnificent ship, one that was called unsinkable, go down so quickly? Several decades later, many questions would be answered. Found. In 1985, something extraordinary happened. The Titanic was found about 4 kilometers, 2.5 millimeters beneath the sea at the bottom of the North Atlantic Ocean. Scientists could finally know their answers about how the ship sank so quickly. Scientists sent robotic devices to explore the videotape the wreckage. The ship's ghostly form appeared eerily on the video monitors. Its front railing recognized even 70 meters below the water. It's been in there 70 years. It's correct. The accident happened in 1912. 1912 plus 70 is 85 below the water. Scientists confirmed that the ship had broken into two parts. But what about what about the hole made by the iceberg? Buried in the sand of the ocean floor, it could not be seen. Therefore, scientists had to rely on sonar waves of the sound that bounce off surfaces. The sound waves helped scientists discover that the iceberg had not cut a huge gash into Titanic's side as first suspected. Instead, the Titanic had made several tiny holes which added together equally only about the same area as a doorway. In addition, a doorway, a doorway. But a doorway is huge. I'm literally looking at my doorway and it's huge. In addition, the holes were higher up on the ship than people had thought. These smaller, higher holes caused the ship's compartments to fill very quickly with water. Which unfortunately caused the ship to sink. Actually, what they meant was 16 compartments flooded up and the others followed. And the reason it literally just broke in part because the front was so heavy, but the back was lighter, so it kind of snapped. Think of getting something like a chocolate bar, melted chocolate, kind of melted though, and then you was putting in like a triangle angle. It definitely broke from flame and heaviness. That's what the same from the Titanic, what I see. Titanic's legacy. Because of the Titanic, many lessons were learned and new rules were applied to make ships safer. Today, a ship must have enough lifeboats for all its passengers, and lifeboat drills must be conducted so everyone knows what to do in case of an emergency. Ships must also keep their radios on 24 hours a day. And the International Ice Patrol, an organization that keeps track of the location of icebergs, were established. The Titanic was the grand ship, and her story is just as grand. The legacy of the Titanic lives in the memories of lives lost, lessons learned by the tragedy, and the changes that such a tragedy brought to sea travel.
Good job.
Wow, beautiful Titanic.